What is up, Incline Dodgers listeners? We've got some spring training action to recap. We got like 5 games in the books. Dodgers are 1-4, but we don't really care about the record right now. We are still reigning World Series champions. We're going to dive into some starting pitchers that have made some long-awaited 2025 appearances, some roster battles between positional players, get Jake's thoughts on the Dodgers and my thoughts as well, and of course, answer your guys' questions along the way. So here we go. It's February 24th. The Dodgers just came off a game against the Cincinnati Reds where they got wiped out again. Score does not matter, but we are presented by Tick Pick and Fansided. Let's do this. So Tyler Glasnow took the ball for the Dodgers today. He hadn't pitched for the Dodgers since, I think, late July, early August. His season was cut short with the elbow tendonitis. So the storyline leading up to today was, how's he going to look? How's that elbow going to hold up? We heard there were going to be some mechanical adjustments. And today he did give up a couple of runs. But overall, I like the stuff generated in the whiffs again in Tyler Glasnow fashion and was throwing 96, 97 miles per hour, and a good start moving forward with Tyler Glasnow, who should be an essential part of the Dodgers rotation this upcoming season.
Yeah, honestly, it was just good to see him out there, just pitching. A lot of these guys like Tony Gonsolin and Dustin May. It's just good to see these guys back out there throwing. And when you think about spring training in sort of the macro perspective, right? We're talking about a couple of different of mindsets going into it. If you're a player that is sort of guaranteed a roster spot coming back from injury, you're just looking to remain healthy. You're looking to see how everything looks in sort of the pressures of a real game. How does the injured part of you that is recovering, how does that feeling? So there's a lot of feeling out that has to go there. Then you're looking at, the veterans, the Mookie Betts of the world, and the Freddie Freeman's an injured player coming back, but Teoscar Hernandez, the regulars, Max Muncy, those guys are working on things that maybe, they're fine tuning their skills. They're getting back up to speed. So basically what I'm trying to say is that nobody should be panicking about the outcomes of these games, what these players look like, if you have the context of what each of these players are doing. Like, for example, like today, Tanner Scott and Blake Trinan got absolutely shelled. And you could look at that and say, what's going to happen with this bullpen? But you really can't say that because these guys are veterans that you don't know, if they're working on certain arm angles or certain pitches or whatever the case may be. So you just got to have patience for those guys. But then the guys that you're really looking at are the guys fighting for roster spots, the Chris Taylors of the world, Andy Pajez's of the world, guys like Zaire Hope and Dalton Rushing looking to make a name for themselves in spring training. And so that's a different mindset too, because they kind of have to be hot out of the gate. They've got to be on their game. They got to be performing well. So you're kind of looking at everything right now, and I'm liking what I'm seeing from a bunch of different players. But honestly, it's just good to have baseball back and to be watching this sport again.
We're going to dive into a lot of those names you just brought up. For those tuning in on the live stream, make sure to hit that like button, and you can drop us some questions along the way, and we'll definitely answer anything you guys have for us. One of the bigger storylines going into spring training, because this guy hasn't pitched since late May of 2023, and his last name happens to be Dustin May, finally was able to take the ball. And this was a huge moment for him. You could see it in the emotion in his eyes, the reaction after he recorded his first spring training strikeout against the San Diego Padres. Dustin May was able to go 1 inning, as they have been limiting all their starters to just 1 inning this early on in spring training. One of the things I noticed with him, there definitely was a velocity dip. A guy that used to throw 101 miles per hour in the month of February was throwing 94, 95 miles per hour yesterday for the Dodgers, and really should be to no one's surprise after 2 elbow surgeries. The big thing that stood out with Dustin May, he had a really great graded out curveball. TJ, I wish I had it up in front of me, but he great follow on X, grades pitcher stuff, and he gave Dustin May's curveball one of the highest grades you can get out of a pitcher for the curveball. It was a 120. The rotations per minute was insane, 3,500 plus, which would have been best in Major League Baseball, I think, last season. Essentially, with Dustin May, what we're looking at now is a guy battling for that last rotation spot, we imagine, with Tony Gonsolin. So we're going to compare the two in a minute. But first, Jake, your thoughts on Dustin May?
Yeah, I just love seeing him back out there. It's weird. I've never ever heard of a baseball player or any athlete having some sort of rip in their esophagus. That is something that I've never heard before. And I would imagine it sucks because it forced Dustin May off the field for the entire season last year. But I think the silver lining here is that it wasn't arm problems, and that's key. And I think the extended amount of time that he's had off of not putting stress or strain on that arm can only be a good thing. And I think for Dustin May, he's kind of in a weird spot because he's kind of has that both of those mindsets of wanting to get back on the mound, pitching healthy again, but then also realizing that he's got to ramp up kind of quickly and show that he can perform so that he can secure that roster spot on the big league roster when they break for opening day. So there is a lot to monitor with him. You mentioned the dip in velocity, but that doesn't bother me right now. I was just happy to see him pitch, but it is something to keep note of as we see him make more appearances out there. But we're really cool to see him, after he got that strikeout, him walking off the mound and just being just grateful and thankful that he was able to get through it injury free and that he's back.
Yeah, so it was Thomas Nestico, who I want to give credit to. TJ Stats, you can follow him. He grades all the pitchers every game. Tony Gonsolin also pitched for the Dodgers. He missed all of 2024, recovering from Tommy John surgery, another guy coming off a significant elbow injury. He looked really good, too, in his first spring training outing. He was able to get 2 strikeouts through a scoreless inning. Fastball velocity was clocked between 91 to 92 miles per hour, which is definitely on the lower side, but you expect that to probably get up to 93, maybe 94 as he gets a little more built out and stronger as this season moves on. The splitter was really sharp as well, was able to generate some whiffs, and I think he had a little bit of frisbee action with his secondary pitches. So, Jake, the way I'm looking at it right now, just based off their general stuff makeup and kind of what they've done throughout their careers, if it's the other 4 guys, which Sasaki I do have some questions on later on, but we know the 4 that are supposedly going to make the rotation. I think Tony Gonsolin right now has the better makeup to be in the Dodgers starting rotation, and Dustin May probably coming out of the bullpen, maybe either as a piggyback guy or they transition him into like that Jimmy Nelson role. I just don't think a guy like Tony Gonsolin, unless you're going to make him throw garbage time innings, I don't think his stuff plays out well to be a reliever as opposed to Dustin May. More velocity there. Maybe it extends his career as well because the guy has no track record of throwing a high innings ever in a season. You can have a longer shelf life. And if you look at the Dodgers' general makeup of bullpen arms right now, they don't really have a guy that throws a good curveball, unless I'm blanking on it. Joe Kelly was kind of their curveball guy. He's gone. And everyone else, I think, throws sweepers and splitters.
I think you might be right coming out of the bullpen. I really agree with what you said about Gonsolin and May. I think Gonsolin has the stuff to be a starter as opposed to being a reliever. But I think if the Dodgers end up going with a 6-man rotation, at the very least, if they go with a 5-man rotation with the bullpen pieces that they've added, I think these starters are going to go a lot less, especially in the first half of the season in terms of innings. They want to get these guys ready and healthy for the playoffs. I don't think that they want to be scrambling at the deadline like they did last season and trying to get Jack Flaherty, which they did and then ended up helping tremendously. But with the way that they shaped up in the playoffs with this, roster and payroll, to kind of have to go to a bullpen game as your 4th starter in the postseason it's not sustainable. So I feel like for someone like Gonsolin, if he looks good, they're not going to have they're not going to have him have to go 6-7 innings every single time. They're going to build him up slowly. And I think with the light workload of maybe 4 to 5 innings out of him and some of the rest of the starters like Sasaki, you turn it over to the bullpen and you're able to salvage games that way. And I think guys like May and Gonsolin and Landon Knack, those guys are going to be so important this year because you're dealing with a starting rotation that is just injury prone up the wazoo. With Glasnow and Kershaw, Yamamoto spent time on the IL. And I'm pretty sure that even though Blake Snell is durable and he's shown to be durable, they're not going to want to run him into the ground. They need him for the playoffs, and we know he's a big time postseason pitcher. So it's going to be interesting how they roll out this starting rotation. But the guys I mentioned, kind of like fringe guys, so to speak, those guys are very, very important this year.
Yeah, and the other thing is they already announced they're going to go with a 5-man rotation until Shohei Ohtani is ready to start. So having those multi-inning guys in the bullpen is going to be pretty important because a guy like Sasaki, I don't think he's going to go more than 5 innings early on in the season. I think they're going to hold him back kind of like they did with Walker Buehler. Same case could be made with guys like Tony Gonsolin and Dustin May, where they really keep them on a light workload early on in the season and have a piggyback guy, kind of like what we saw a few years ago with, I think, Gonsolin and Tyler Anderson were the pairing. So maybe you have Gonsolin and May piggyback one another. And with Sasaki, they're kind of hiding him right now. I don't know if it's to keep him out of the spotlight and have less scouting material out there for the opposition, but he isn't going to throw in a televised Cactus League game. I don't think this week either. I think they announced this afternoon he's pitching in like the B squad game, and I don't think they're going to have TVs on that. So it's kind of interesting how they're definitely holding back Sasaki, which to me makes sense. And that kind of begs the question where they just said it the other day, Tyler Glasnow, Blake Snell are locked in to pitch the exhibition games in Japan. And they announced Yamamoto is going to be the opening day starter in Tokyo. And it's presumed that Roki Sasaki would be the other starter. But if Sasaki's not stretched out, we might say 3-4 innings out of him, and then they go to the bullpen.
Yeah, I could see that happening. I think that they're going to be very cautious with Sasaki, and I think that they can be because they have the depth right now. Barring any catastrophic injuries, they have the depth. Speaking of which, we didn't mention Bobby Miller, who it was great to see him back out there, but then quickly he got a wake up call. He took a 100-mile-an-hour batted ball to the dome, and Jesus Christ. I mean, I was watching it live. I audibly just yelled. I mean, it was just shocking when it happened, and it made such a sound. And you could see immediately, because it was, it just so happened to be Michael Busch, the former Dodger, to hit that ball. He looked so just shocked and worried for Bobby Miller. And for Bobby to kind of get up and actually walk off the field under his own power was kind of remarkable and just kind of shows you his toughness. But you're also like, damn, man, you're rooting for him because he had a horrendous year last year, coming off a pretty stellar rookie campaign. You thought you could build on that. And then I don't know what happened, but he just was not the same last year. And so for him to take a fastball, basically a batted fastball off the head, very, very scary stuff. But it sounds like the worst case scenario was avoided. And I didn't hear an update, Kevin. I'm not sure if you did, but I would assume they're expecting him to come back at some point this spring.
No, he's good. Yeah, he's going to throw tomorrow, not in a game, but he cleared concussion protocol, and he's going to throw to, I think, hitters tomorrow. I don't know when his next Cactus League appearance will be. Go figure that it was Michael Busch. I know obviously it wasn't intentional, but this guy's just been killing the Dodgers since he got traded. But we're going to talk Zaire Hope in a few minutes, and that guy has been a star in the making. So I'm excited about that. So you kind of moved it to the perfect transition of the next tier of pitchers. Bobby Miller, we got to see a little action from. Unfortunately, it ended abruptly. The guy that really impressed me in his first spring training outing, and it's kind of big because he missed all of last season due to injury. Nick Frasso looked really sharp. He threw an inning, scoreless, 96 miles per hour. He looked really good, and this is a guy you can probably expect to make an impact for the Dodgers at some point this season. They're going to have to call him up, whether it's to rest some guys or injuries. And I think Nick Frasso, who was at one point a top prospect in all of Major League Baseball, if he can really get to true form and pitch lights out in AAA, we'll be talking about Nick Frasso for the foreseeable future. So I'm excited about him. He's one of the early positive impressions I'm getting in spring training.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think today you saw kind of the big guns, the big bullpen guns on display. You got to see Kirby Yates for the first time, and Tanner Scott for the first time, and Banda and Treinen and Vesia. So it was cool to see those guys be trotted out there. Unfortunately for Tanner Scott and Treinen, they got lit up for 5 runs collectively. So that sucked, but obviously that doesn't mean anything. It's just nice to see it's always nice to see the new toys that the Dodgers have at every spring training, like Hae-Sung Kim, in the lineup getting a hit. That was sick. Mookie Betts at shortstop. We're seeing, kind of the effort that he's put in. There's a couple other guys too, like Eddie Rosario. Like what the hell? Like, that guy's tearing it up. Michael, to see Michael Conforto. It's cool though, because it's like they're not putting all the guys in one lineup each day. It's like every day there's a different lineup with different, starting players in it. So you kind of get a flavor of what this team is made of. And then you get a bunch of the new guys, non-roster invitees like David Bodie in there. It's always interesting to see who pops up and does well.
The non-roster invite pitchers have been so underwhelming so far. Like Gallegos has been bad.
Like Jarvis.
Jarvis was the other name I was about to bring up.
That guy got absolutely worked.
He's been shelled twice so far. I think he threw a scoreless inning today, but Garcia, I think if that's the last name I'm thinking of correctly.
Luis Garcia.
Yeah, he had a terrible first outing. Looked better today, but my goodness, these guys not impressing so far. A lot of the Dodgers relievers in general haven't looked great. Henriquez, a guy that could have been in the conversation for opening day. I don't think he's anywhere near ready to be part of the Major League Baseball staff either. So there's certainly some openings, and this is where a guy like Dustin May, you get your chance to maybe be a part of the Dodgers bullpen or rotation. Landon Knack, another guy who I think will be in the mix as well. Maybe he pitches multiple innings. And correct me if I'm wrong, we haven't seen a Michael Grove outing yet, have we?
No, I haven't seen him pitch yet.
Very odd. A guy that I felt like pitched every other day in spring training.
Yeah. Did you expect Eddie Rosario to be the first Dodgers spring training home run?
No, but that takes me to my next point. Eddie Rosario is on that short list of positional players that are really standing out right now. Unfortunately for Eddie Rosario, barring an injury, I don't think there's a spot for him.
Yeah.
With Chris Taylor coming out very slow, they're still going to give it to him, unfortunately. But, I mean, who could you take off? You can't take off Kike. You can't take off Miguel Rojas. I think Hae-Sung Kim's a lock to be a part of the opening day roster too. Tommy Edman, obviously Tommy Edman's in the lineup. Teoscar Hernandez. So the outfield is crowded. The guys that are just being losers right now in terms of hurting their chances of making Major League Baseball opening day for the Dodgers, Andy Pages has taken a big hit. Not only offensively, he hasn't done anything. He's struck out a few times with runners in scoring position. He also hasn't looked very competent out there in center field, which has been kind of disappointing to me. He's misread a few kind of routine fly balls his direction, and one of them resulted in a triple. And I talked about Andy Pages a lot this spring training, and unfortunately, it's been a sluggish start. He's still got a few weeks to shine, but if it's going to come down to Chris Taylor and Andy Pages hasn't made a great case for himself so far.
I know these guys are human beings, but I've never seen a major league outfielder misjudge fly balls as as badly as he does. I just don't get it. The triple you're talking about, it was like a rising line drive that he started to charge, and then it went way over his head. That all he had to do if his first step was back, which is what they teach you in Little League, when you see a fly ball, your first step is a drop step back because it's much easier to run in than it is to run back. He would have made the catch, but I don't know why they can't teach him that. Like it makes no sense unless it's like a between the ears thing where it's like a mental thing. But like I've never seen that before where a guy who is an outfielder, it's not like, when they threw Gavin Lux out there and he had no idea what was going on. It's not like that where you're learning a new position or whatever. This guy is an outfielder, and the fact that he can't make a play out there is so it's jarring. I'm glad that you put this question on the screen. CT3 and Outman, how long does that experiment last? Outman's another guy who is not making a great case for himself. He's only had 7 at bats, but he's got 1 hit. And he's striking out like he normally does. Kind of unfortunate because when you think about Outman, it's like the one thing you can really count on for him is a monster spring and then a monster year in AAA and not a lot else. So the fact that he's not coming out the gate swinging a hot bat in spring training is very concerning for his stock.
Yep. Good question coming from Crash. I encourage everyone who's in the chat right now, if you got questions for us, drop them below and hit that like button. It's not looking good for James Outman. Time is running up. I'm a big fan of James Outman, but if you're going to have a slow spring after having an abysmal 2024 campaign and early on in spring training, you're showing you're not cutting down the strikeout tendencies, it's going to be a very hard case for you to be a part of the Dodgers' futures. So James Outman, I hate seeing guys that are 4A players, but that seems to be almost what Outman is. Too good for AAA, but maybe not good enough for Major League Baseball at this stage in his career. Maybe he'll find it and get on that big league roster, but right now he's only hurting his case. Chris Taylor, we'll see how long they want to hold on to him. It's obvious that they're going to try to give Chris Taylor as many ropes and reps as possible, as they've been starting him a lot this spring. But yeah, Chris Taylor's here for at least this season, and then he's a free agent. I don't know if the Dodgers will cut bait with him at some point mid-season, but for now, he's here.
I know it's a different conversation when you talk about catchers and Austin Barnes, for example, but I almost wonder, like, is Chris Taylor getting the Austin Barnes treatment where we don't care how bad you play. You're going to stay on this roster because of maybe what you mean to the clubhouse, and also just your ability to be a good, role player, not have, and essentially like not have an ego in this and be okay with, very limited playing time. I don't know. Because another conversation we got to have is the Hunter Fiducia conversation. What happens to that guy? Because clearly he's a better hitter than Austin Barnes, which is not saying much, but you figure he's a better hitter than Austin Barnes. He's probably a decent enough catcher. Why wouldn't you just carry the better catcher as opposed to carrying Austin Barnes? And I think the answer is pretty clear, is that Austin Barnes is been with the team for a really long time now. He's kind of baked into the fabric of this team. Some guys call him the captain. I've never seen him lead or do anything of that sort. So that's probably just an internal thing with them. What do you make of it with Chris Taylor? Because it's not like he's really earning this roster spot right now.
Two things. One, if Chris Taylor didn't have a $15 million salary, it'd probably be easier to cut ties with him. But probably more importantly right now, there isn't really anyone making a very strong case to overtake Chris Taylor's role, because for the reasons you just mentioned, they value his clubhouse leadership and him being a good clubhouse fit and just kind of being able to go with the flow. Meanwhile, you got a number of other guys that are either in AAA waiting for their call or their non-roster invites, And it's nice to see Eddie Rosario have a big home run and an RBI double, but that's not enough yet to completely cut ties with Chris Taylor, because the last 2 or 3 years, Eddie Rosario struggled at the plate as well.
Yeah.
And then David Bodie, who I also wanted to bring up, who's having a nice spring. Well, David Bodie hasn't really been a impactful Major League Baseball player either the last 3 years. So it's nice that David Bodie's rocking some AA and AAA scrubs, but let's see David Bodie against Major League pitching, because we haven't seen a lot of that yet. So I think the Dodgers will weigh their options. Maybe one of these guys, Rosario or Bodie, will stick around and hang on in the Oklahoma City world for a month or two, and then if the Dodgers aren't going to give them a call up, then they'll probably opt out and seek an offer elsewhere. But I think a guy like David Bodie maybe is a little less inclined to hold on. I think the reason that maybe both of them signed up to join the Dodgers was to just kind of showcase themselves, pick up some tips from the Dodgers hitting coach and star players, because they've got a great long line of tremendous talent on this team. Pick up some of those pointers, make a name for themselves in spring training, and then hope a team bites one of the lesser teams like the Marlins or the Pirates that need one of these guys and can play them every day.
Right.
I'm guessing that's the thought process here.
Yeah, I mean, the thought process is that with these guys, I'm sure Eddie Rosario, David Bodie, those guys, they can see the forest for the trees here. They see this roster and they know that they're more than likely not going to crack the Major League roster come opening day, but there are 29 other teams out there looking for help that have injuries or need a guy or whatever, and this is an opportunity for them to kind of audition and prove that they still belong at the Major League level. But yeah, I mean, it is tough when you're talking about Chris Taylor, because like I've said before, maybe the magic has just kind of run out with this guy. Like, they got something out of Chris Taylor that I don't even think he knew he had in him, which was actually a really good player. A good, he started out in 2017, basically, they didn't start out, but he worked his way up to being like a top of the lineup guy in the postseason, winning NLCS MVP in 2017 and all of that. And kind of out of nowhere became a great role player and a great utility player. But it seems like, the magic has kind of run out at this point.
Yeah. I mean, he's 34. He's not exactly young anymore. It's kind of in that you can't teach an old dog new tricks category. He's changed his swing for the third consecutive spring training in a row or whatever it is. And it's just a harsh reality. I think he had 3 strikeouts today. He can't catch up with the ball like he used to. And the Dodgers are going to give him the benefit of the doubt. They'll write it out for now. But in terms of Hunter Fiducia, I am begging the Dodgers to trade this guy. Like, I feel so bad that he is just wasting away on the depth chart and has to spend the duration of his career in AAA, because from all accounts, it looks like Hunter Fiducia would be a damn good backup catcher, if not maybe a good starting catcher for a low life team like the Marlins or the last place. Well, they're not last place anymore, but even like when the Tigers were bad, or the Blue Jays, one of these lesser teams that might be bottom feeders this upcoming season, Fiducia would rock. And I think the Dodgers kind of owe it to him at this point to just trade him away and give him that Major League Baseball opportunity.
I agree. I mean, it'd be nice if they could just say that to him at some point and just say, you know what, we don't care whether Austin Barnes hits well or not. There's no opportunity for you here. And there's gotta be some scrubby team out there that needs a catcher. Like, come on. Like, I totally agree with you, because every spring this guy comes up and he hits, and he even hit in like a very short sample size last season when he got like 12 at bats. He got like multiple, hits in 12 at bats. So yeah, just doesn't make much sense.
The Rockies not want Hunter Fiducia? Like, who's catching for the Rockies that would be better than this guy? Like,
right.
Fiducia probably could hit 20 home runs and hit 280 at Coors Field.
I know.
Are they just that incompetent? They don't want to win. Like they don't want to try to win any games. Like they don't do shit. It's an embarrassment. It's an embarrassment. I almost want them out of the NL West because I hate watching games against the Rockies because they're so horrendous.
And also, like, the fact that Coors Field kind of becomes like a even playing field almost when you play them, because you just never know if you're going to win that game. You never know if 5 or 6 runs is enough for you, like, a 5 or 6 run lead. So yeah, no, that it's annoying watching Dodgers Rockies games, or just Rockies games in general.
Congrats, Aaron, who's going out to Camelback Ranch this weekend. First time going to spring training. That is very exciting for you, Aaron. Thank you for tuning in. Have a great time there in Arizona. With some news and notes here that is worth mentioning, and I think Dodger fans will be excited to hear this. Freddie Freeman, Will Smith, and Shohei Ohtani all might see action for the Dodgers near the end of this week for spring training. The bigger shocker here was, I guess Will Smith was battling a serious ankle injury himself last season and caught the duration of the second half injured. This is like the second year in a row where Will Smith was seriously hurt and played through it. So I guess
didn't know about it.
Expects the dips in numbers, but tough player right there.
Yeah, no, it's good to see those guys come back. I'm glad you clarified with Will the thing about Will Smith, because I didn't know why we hadn't seen him yet. But yeah, no, I mean, catchers are the toughest players in the sport, no doubt about it.
And then I'm excited to hear about Shohei Ohtani. Was throwing 95, maybe even 96 miles per hour in his most recent bullpen session. This is a guy that could throw 100 miles per hour pre all the injuries. So we're all anticipating what it's going to be like to see Shohei Ohtani pitch for the Dodgers this upcoming season. So those are early good signs. Can't wait to see him. Hopefully we get some taste of that in the month of May with Shohei Ohtani in the Dodgers rotation. Bad news, though. It sounds like Evan Phillips and Michael Kopech are going to both start this season on the injured list for the Dodgers, which is why I was alluding to earlier in the episode that there are definitely some opportunities for some of these guys to crack the opening day roster and come out of the bullpen for the Dodgers. And this is where a Dustin May or Tony Gonsolin or a Landon Knack or Ben Kasparius, you rise and you shine in spring training, and maybe you come out of the bullpen for the Dodgers.
Yeah, no, the most interesting position battle right now in spring training is the pitching staff, starting, pitching, and relievers, because there are so many opportunities for these guys to shine. And that is what I'm looking at. I mean, Ben Kasparius is a guy that you mentioned that I think could easily make this roster. I mean, he was on the postseason roster. So, yeah, that is one thing that, watching these spring training games, it can get a little boring after the starters come out in the 4th or 5th inning. But the thing to keep your eye on is the bullpen, and you never know who's coming out of the bullpen, scheduled to pitch that day. They're fighting for roster spots. And that to me is the most fun part about spring training.
And then I promised I would talk about him 15 minutes ago or whenever it was, and I'd be damned and it'd be a shame if I didn't bring him up. Zaire Hope has been awesome for the Dodgers early on. He had a rocket for a home run. It was like a line drive, I think, over the left field wall.
Yeah, opposite.
Zaire Hope has looked awesome. Very young, I think 19-year-old prospect for the Dodgers. He'll be at the lower levels to start this season, but maybe in 26 or 27. You can certainly count on him, if all shakes out well, being a part of the Dodgers' future in the outfield. So they found a gem, it looks like. Great hitting prospects.
Yeah, that's what's so great about this organization, is that even them spending, billions of dollars to acquire some of these really amazing players, they also have just an elite farm system, an elite development. And I saw do you remember a few years ago when the Angels drafted like 20 pitchers in the draft? Yes. And I saw like a video a guy made where he was basically updating each and every one of those players. And I mean, just bust after bust, scrub. I mean, all over the map. None of these guys panned out. Literally none of them. 0 for 20, whatever it was. And that just goes to show you that, it's not just about finding good talent. It's about developing good talent and finding diamonds in the rough and making the right trades and treating these players like human beings and giving them all of the amenities that they need. The Dodgers certainly have the money to do that. Angels do too. They just don't use it right. So for the Dodgers to again have these elite prospects in the pipeline, not to mention this all-star roster they've compiled. I mean, you just know that whenever these guys, leave the team, like Teoscar Hernandez or Freddie Freeman down the road, all these guys that either end up, retiring or being traded or signed with another team late in their career, there's always more guys ready to take these spots. And it's just awesome. It's just, and what you've seen from Zaire Hope, the guy's a machine. I mean, he just punishes baseballs. I mean, it's actually like scary to watch how hard he hits these balls.
Be a mistake, Jake, if I didn't ask you your thoughts on this ABS challenge system. Thoughts?
I mean, clearly it's in its infancy, and I think that what it aims to do is certainly what we want ultimately, because how often do games get swayed by bad umpiring? We see the umpire scorecards come out now after each game, and you can see kind of where the worst calls were and if one team had an advantage over another team. This hopefully cuts down on that, but obviously there's been some weird kinks with it so far. But I mean, generally speaking, I like it. It doesn't take too long. It's based on, the technology that we see when we watch, the games on television, or if we look at the At Bat app, it's the same kind of technology there. So I'm all for it once it gets kind of all the kinks are ironed out. What do you think? What do you make of it?
It's about damn time we had something like this. I was so sick of these egregious calls. It's like what you see in tennis. It was like they have the technology. Why did it take so long to get to where we are? I love the player empowerment. So far, it's proven to be a great addition to baseball. The whole human aspect of the game, like, do I think we should get rid of umpires in general? Maybe not go that far, but I definitely think there should be a realm to challenge umpires when they get some of these egregious calls. And we saw one the other day with Andy Pajes, who was batting. I think the bases were loaded, nobody or one out, and they were going to call him out for a strike three looking. But you saw the pitch when it was challenged. It was like a foot easily above the strike zone. And guys like Mookie Betts, you see it all year long. I think maybe it's because of his size or something. There's a lot of calls that are called wrong against Mookie Betts. And when you've got guys at the top like Shohei, Mookie, Freddie, they're going to probably be the ones that I imagine when this rule gets implemented, maybe in 2026, they'll get the right of way and the priority, as opposed to someone at the bottom of the lineup. They might say, yeah, we'll hold off on that unless it's like egregiously wrong. But I love the rule.
What are the rules? Like, how many challenges do you get per game? Is it only per at bat? Like, what are the rules right now? Do you know?
Yeah, I believe it's unlimited per at bat, but I think you only get two. If you get it right, it continues on. If you get it wrong and you get two wrong, you're done.
Got it. You're done for that at bat.
No, the game. Like, you get, I think, two in a game.
Like per player?
No, just in a game. I'm
like
pretty
in
sure.
A game, if you get two wrong, you don't get the challenge anymore after that.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. So that'll be interesting to kind of strategize, right, as a team based on the situation, right? So you don't want to necessarily get a call wrong in the first or second inning and then be out of challenges when you really need it in like the seventh or eighth inning.
Exactly. And you probably want to use your challenges not when it's like bases loaded, or sorry, I got that wrong. When there's nobody out, or sorry, God, I cannot talk. circle back. You don't want to waste your challenge if there's nobody on, there's 2 outs, and there's 2 strikes to end like the second inning. You probably want to use that challenge if there's bases loaded, nobody out, and it's an egregiously wrong call. That's probably when you want to strategize.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, I'm excited to see how this ABS challenge system evolves. Great addition to baseball. Was long overdue. Mookie Betts at shortstop. Early thoughts there. He's looked pretty good.
He has. I'll give him that. I've been negative about the whole move to shortstop because I just didn't see the point. But I mean, Mookie Betts is a one of a kind athlete. I mean, there are only so many athletes out there that can do something elite that nobody else can do. And the old phrase of like, you can be anything if you want to put and you put your mind to it. It's not always the case because sometimes you just don't have the ability. And Mookie Betts is the rare breed that he does have that ability because he does work his ass off, but he also has like, the gifts of being able to be elite at this position. And he's looked great so far. The one thing that we've been kind of, waiting to see what it would look like is his throwing, because that's kind of what he struggled with last season. But he's looked pretty good so far. What would you say?
He's looked very smooth and motivated. I mean, he talked about it a number of times already in interviews this offseason. He wants to prove it to all the skeptics that he can play the position, and to his advantage and point, like you give him the full offseason to get the workouts in, get the rhythm. It's probably going to work out a lot better than a transition last second when you were planning to be the second baseman, then you moved to shortstop. I mean, it's kind of interesting. They gave him the second base job, and now he wants to be the shortstop. But to hell with it, I guess. We'll let Mookie get the leeway for now. And so far, he's looking good. But yeah, like you said, the arm is going to be the question mark. Can he make those throws from the shortstop position? Guess we'll wait and find out. We got another question from Crash, and I encourage all of you guys, if you're in the live stream, to ask your questions before we get on out of here, and hit that like button too while you're here. Do you guys think Freddie Freeman's going to retire when his contract is up? Well, Freddie Freeman is still under contract with the Dodgers for 3 more seasons. Then he's an unrestricted free agent in 2028. So if he is 35 right now, that means he'd be 38 going on 39 when the season ends. I would imagine that is probably the end of the line for Freddie Freeman.
I don't think so. I think he has the work ethic and the ability to hang around longer than most players. I mean, he's been like so available. I mean, just never on the IL. Last year was a kind of a fluke that he was hurt even. He wants to play every game. He keeps his body in shape to do so. And eventually, guys that hang on that long become DHs. And so I don't see why you wouldn't want even a 38, 39-year-old Freddie Freeman getting hits in your lineup. So I would bet on him extending his career beyond this contract.
Okay. Would it be with the Dodgers, or you have to wait and see?
I don't know, because the Dodgers have first base is kind of like when you talk about guys that are on the way out, they're either moving to first base or they're becoming a DH. And so Freddie's already at one of the least demanding physical positions on the diamond. So I have a feeling that if he's still hitting and he still wants to play, I mean, of course he's got that big family, so that may be a factor, wanting to watch his son, his kids grow up and all that. So there could be that aspect to it, to where at the end of the contract, he just decides, it's enough baseball for me. I've already won. I mean, I hope that the Dodgers win more titles with Freddie Freeman, but he's already won 2 titles. He has an MVP. He's had an amazing career. He's going to be a Hall of Famer. So it may not be the fact that his ability is preventing him from sticking around. It may just be a personal decision. But I think with the way he carries himself and the way he works, he could hit into his 40s.
Yeah, if there's anyone that could do it, Freddie Freeman certainly in that rare feat.
Also, 3,000 hits. Someone brought up in the chat. I didn't check it, but someone says he's 733 hits away. So if he doesn't have that by the time the contract is up, I would imagine that he'd probably want to get that milestone.
He'd have to average if he went one extra year, he'd have to average close to 200 hits a season, which I think it's possible. Certainly not impossible for him to get close to 200 hits for the next 4 years. So
yeah,
could be actually a big milestone that he does want to chase. And not that it's already in doubt. He's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, but if he wants to, get 100% unanimous vote, maybe he feels like he needs to get 3,000 hits, because that's another aspect of Hall of Fame voting that just makes me sick, is that only one player in the history of baseball ever got 100% of the votes, and it was a closer in Mariano Rivera. Makes absolutely zero sense.
well, yeah, like who just got it?
Ichiro,
right? Why wasn't he a unanimous vote? What asshole didn't vote for Ichiro? Idiots.
It's gonna be sick if Kershaw doesn't get all the votes. Be absolutely sick.
There should be more unanimous votes, and I don't know. And again, I'm not a writer, so I'm not a voter, obviously. So I don't know. I don't know how it goes, but like, is it the case that they don't want to waste a vote on some person that they assume is going to get in? I think that's ridiculous. Like who else were you going to vote if you weren't voting for Ichiro? What other players? It's not like every year there are, I don't know how many votes you get, but
Mark Burley.
Like there's not 10 candidates that deserve to be in the Hall of Fame every single year, right? So what are you wasting your vote on? Makes no sense.
I've never seen a player who's perfectly fine, but get treated like he's some immortal god more than Mark Burley. The Chicago White Sox are erecting a statue of Mark Burley. If you look at his stats, he helped them win a World Series in 2005. I get that. But why is Mark Burley getting more love from the Baseball Hall of Fame writers than a guy like Johan Santana, who should easily be a Hall of Fame pitcher, in my opinion? Johan Santana, in his first year of eligibility, didn't even get 5% of the votes. And if you look at his career WAR, I'm pretty sure it's in the mid-50s, and he won 2 Cy Young Awards.
Yeah, and Mark Burley's a fine player, but he never won a Cy Young.
No. And he was not even an all-star that many seasons.
He's a 5-time all-star, 4-time Gold Glover. That's pretty much all his accolades.
Lovely.
And he finished 5th in Cy Young voting in 2005 with a 3.12 ERA.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's good, but it's not great.
Yeah. If we're gonna throw out hot takes there, since I'm overdue for one, any pitcher that won 2 Cy Young Awards should be a lock to make the Hall of Fame, in my opinion. I would say Blake Snell, Tim Lincecum, Johan Santana all should be Hall of Famers because they won 2 Cy Young Awards. But that's just a me thing.
So this is like the Eli Manning rule, where it's like Eli Manning has 2 Super Bowls, so therefore he should be considered a Hall of Famer.
No, because Eli Manning would have needed to win 2 MVPs.
You think MVPs are more important for Hall of Fame voting than World Series? But I guess quarterback is a different thing as opposed to a baseball player where it's not as, I mean, I guess quarterback is the most individual position in football, but I just I think the problem you run into if you start saying that a guy that got 2 Cy Young Awards should be automatically in, you kind of ignore the longevity. And I think that's a big factor for these writers is have you been good, or let's say, have you been elite for a significant amount of your career? And Lincecum had a magical run with the Giants, but other than that, it's sort of like Andrew Jones, for example, where it's like he had a great run as a center fielder for the Braves, but after that 7-year run, it was like he fell off a cliff.
I'm not here to give Giants their love, but like Tim Lincecum was so overlooked and forgotten about now. He was the best pitcher in Major League Baseball for at least a good 3 years. Not only in that span, he won 2 World Series that he was a major contributor a part of, 2 Cy Youngs, and then he won that third one where he was carried by Mad Bum to get his 3rd World Series. But like a guy like Lincecum, he was kind of like this is what's gotten me in trouble before. I'm not going to go there again. But it falls in that Koufax line where he was very dominant for a short span. But obviously, Koufax was miles ahead better than Lincecum. But that's my point.
Yeah, I get the point you're trying to make, but it's like, I mean, Sandy won World Series titles. He won Cy Young awards, and he had 4 no-hitters. Yeah. So, and I think they made an exception because of the longevity thing that I was talking about with Sandy Koufax, because he was just unhittable.
Lincecum pitched 2 no-hitters.
Yeah. I'm saying that you kind of get a little bit of a crossover with him, but the longevity part, I think Sandy Koufax is the outlier in terms of the longevity argument.
Yeah.
But I think the longevity argument for most players is kind of the standard.
All right. To close out this brief conversation, who in your mind was the better pitcher in their prime? Who you taking? Give them the ball. They're in their prime, their best stuff.
Game 7 of the World Series.
Tim Lincecum, World Series, Game 7. Tim Lincecum or CC Sabathia?
Wow. I know you're going Lincecum because you've set this up for that, but I'm going CC Sabathia.
Fair enough. I was just going to pull up his postseason pitching real quick. Lincecum has a 7-0 record in the playoffs with a 2.40 ERA, a WHIP below point. It's a 0.85 WHIP.
Yes.
And a 2.27 FIP.
Yeah. Elite.
So,
and what was CC Sabathia? I just remember CC Sabathia when he got traded to the Brewers, where he literally carried that team by himself.
He did have that insane run. So Sabathia pitched in a lot more series, so his numbers are going to be a little inflated. But 7-9 playoff record, 4.28 playoff ERA, 4.39 FIP.
Okay.
And even in his prime, like in 07, he had a 5.40 ERA against the Yankees. He had a 10 ERA against the 07 Red Sox. He got shelled in 08 by the Phillies. So he had a lot of bad outings.
I guess it's just my my never pick a Giant philosophy.
Yeah. I mean, if we're doing Mad Bum versus CC, it's a different conversation, but Lincecum had all those accolades and the
playoff. Not to glaze the Giants here for a second, but like, to have Lincecum and Bumgarner and Matt Cain, like that's an insane rotation. And they were all good in the playoffs.
Yep. All right. Last question came from one of our followers online, and I missed it last time, so I wanted to get to it this time. So coming from Bone Thug Sergio on X, best Mexican food. That was the question. So you can spin this any direction you want.
Best Mexican food, like in Los Angeles?
Like I said, you can spin it however you want.
I mean, I don't know. The first answer that comes to mind, I'm going with Leo's Tacos. It's a taco stand on. I know I'm gonna fuck this
They're all
up.
over.
They're all over. So you've heard it, but there's the one location that everyone goes to. I believe it's on like La Cienega or somewhere there. Like you see Dodgers fans there after the game all the time. I love it, and it's to me the best tacos. But I'm not saying it's the best Mexican food. I'm still actually, Kevin, in the pursuit of the best burrito in Los Angeles. I've yet to have it. I don't know where to find it.
Yeah.
And if anybody has any suggestions out there, I will gladly take it.
So at a high level, California burrito, I think, is my favorite.
With
Mexican
the French
food.
fries and the sour cream and all that, and the avocado and the guacamole.
Yep. That is, if I had to pick one for one last Mexican meal ever, I guess I would go with that.
But from where?
So I was gonna do LA. They don't, but I was gonna do an LA restaurant, but not for California burritos. But for the California burrito, you gotta go down to San Diego. Taco Stand is really good. Highly recommend.
It's just called Taco Stand.
Yeah, and it's pretty well known out there. They've got a few locations. In LA, my favorite Mexican restaurant is located on Centinela in the it's in Mar Vista, 90066. Paco's Tacos.
Paco's Tacos. I've actually never been there. I've driven by it 900 million times. I know exactly where that is. That's really good.
I think so.
What do you get there?
Enchiladas or burritos.
The burrito's good there? Okay.
And
all right, Kevin.
Great margaritas.
Honestly, I trusted you for the win. I tried that cheeseburger. It's delicious. For smash burgers, it's probably the best. But I will. All right, I will follow you into the Paco's Tacos.
Just order what you like there. Don't order like what I like. Order what you would like, and
yeah,
probably go better.
Look, I'm in pursuit of the best.
They have. Let's get some food porn up here. 1 second. And people listening on the audio feed are going to be like, "What?" These flour tortillas are maybe some of the best flour tortillas I've ever had in my life. They make them there fresh. They are so soft. They are so warm, and they've got that perfect flour to dough consistency. Oh, getting mouth watering just thinking about it. Elite stuff right there. The Shohei Ohtani of flour tortillas. Paco's Tacos. I'll leave it there. Jake, any final thoughts or topics or any baseball things you wanted to get out there?
Do you think the Dodgers extend Dave Roberts before opening day?
Yeah, take it to the bank. I don't know what the holdup is.
Yeah,
I thought this was going to be the first thing they would get done this offseason. Even Aaron Boone got his contract.
I know. I sent that to you, and I was like, how is Aaron Boone getting? I mean, Mr. Nestor Cortez in a tight spot, like an extension before Dave Roberts.
What must be going on here has to be some of the most extravagant back and forth contract negotiations, maybe all time, between a manager and the ball club. But when it's all said and done, Dave Roberts will be the highest paid manager in baseball. I remember having this debate or discussion a year plus ago when Craig Counsell got that contract, and I wasn't knocking Counsell. My argument was, if you're a revered manager, you should be getting paid more, especially with the way salaries are inflated these days. Like, they shouldn't be making pennies on the dollars if they're a top tier manager. You got crappy NBA coaches making more than most managers.
And credit to Dave Roberts for, withstanding all of the criticism, us included. And I know he doesn't even know we exist, but I'm saying that all the criticism that he's that has been leveled at his feet, just his resolve, I think, throughout all of this, and also managing one of the most high profile franchises in all of sports, storied franchise, the pressure of winning a title, something that hasn't been done since 1988. He's now won 2. We talk about players that grow up in front of our eyes, and we're, we grow attached to them, like Clayton Kershaw, watching him from a young kid on the scene in 2008 and staying with him the entirety of his career. But we've really watched Dave Roberts grow up in front of our eyes. And it's a weird thing to say for a manager, But as a rookie manager back in 2016 to now, my goodness, what an arc for him, that he has become one of the best managers maybe of all time. I don't know if I want to go that far, but certainly in Dodgers history. And the way he managed this past postseason in 2024 is, it makes everything worth it. All of it. He was immaculate in this postseason. Didn't pull one wrong lever. And it showed, because his players have believed in him. He was able to get the job done, and he has become an all-time manager. And that to me is so cool. So for us, all the shit we've given him, all the shit he's gotten all over the years, a lot of it deserved, because a lot of those moves were just, you couldn't explain them even today, even a few years removed from the catastrophes. You can't explain them. Let's extend Dave Roberts. Let's get that done. That's what I really want to see.
Going from Pedro Baez to Evan Phillips will certainly do wonders for.
Yeah.
Baez was a trap. He was, oh my God, in 2020 he was awful, but
oh my God,
one despite of Baez. But anyways, yes, I agree with your points, and it's funny because like coming out of the gates, Dave Roberts was hot as a manager. He was doing everything right.
Sought after too.
Carried him in 2016. That team was crippled by injuries. Got them to the NLCS. Year 2, off to the World Series. And then they made back-to-back NL pennant wins, and then World Series appearances. And then it's like he took a huge step backwards. And then something happened in 2019 that he just really didn't seem to recover. They won in 2020, but they were down 3-1 to the Braves. I think a lot of people forget kind of how bad of a manager Roberts was in that series.
Oh, I don't forget that. That was, I was tearing my hair out.
Till things sputtered in the right direction. And then 2021 and 22 was just like, what the hell are we doing? 2023, many give them a pass because they basically punted the season. And then, like you just said, all worth it with 2024, one of the greatest teams of all time. I don't want to say I'm complacent, but the expectation is that the Dodgers should win at least 2 more in this decade before it's 2030. Like, they should have at least 2 more World Series championships to their name, I would say. I think that's a fair expectation. I don't expect them to win every year. That just doesn't happen. But 2 more before it turns 2030, I think that's realistic.
I agree.
And that's all I got. I don't see any questions in the chat. So we're going to get on out of here. Got another show planned for you guys tomorrow. We got 2 guests coming on, so make that announcement later on. But if you haven't joined the Discord, link is there. Talking Dodgers, getting ready for this big 2025 season. Jake, anything else?
No, we covered it.
All right. Well, that's the early look at spring training. We'll be back with some more analysis as the Dodgers play more games. We'll get you guys fired up and ready for the 2025 season, and we'll start to make predictions and all that fun stuff later in the month of March. Everyone have